From JBS Studios in Greater New York, this is the JBS News Update with Teisha Bader.
I'm Teisha Bader with the JBS News Update for Tuesday, October the 18th, 2016. The Times of Israel, citing Israel Radio, reports that 2 Israeli children were lightly injured today in a rock-throwing incident in the East Jerusalem neighborhood of Atur. The children, aged 9 and 14, were treated for their injuries at Hadassah Hospital in Mount Scopus, Jerusalem, and then released. Yesterday, 3 Israelis were lightly wounded in 2 rock-throwing incidents. 2 were hurt when the rocks were thrown at their vehicle, also in the Atur neighborhood. They were taken to the hospital for treatment, and a 15-year-old Palestinian boy was arrested on suspicion of being involved. And in a separate incident yesterday, an Israeli was wounded after being struck by a rock at the Lion's Gate in Jerusalem's Old City. Last night, an Israeli bus driver was lightly injured when rocks were thrown at his vehicle near the West Bank settlement of Beitar Elit near Bethlehem. He was taken by paramedics to the hospital for treatment. The United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, or UNESCO, adopted a resolution today that caused major uproar in the Jewish world. As we have been reporting to you, the resolution passed in the committee stage in Paris last week and today was officially adopted by UNESCO's executive board, despite efforts from Israel's foreign ministry and from Jewish organizations around the world. The resolution, which was initiated by the Palestinians and submitted by several Arab states, ignores Jewish and Christian historical ties to holy religious sites in Jerusalem, namely the Temple Mount and the Western Wall, referring to them by their Muslim names, and calls Israel the, quote, occupier. Israel last week, after the initial passage of the resolution, suspended ties with UNESCO, and UNESCO's own Director General Irina Bokova said she was opposed to the resolution. Bokova said on Friday that the heritage of Jerusalem is indivisible and that each of its communities has a right to the explicit recognition of their history and relationship with the city. Jewish organizations here in the U.S. had expressed their outrage at the resolution as well, calling it the latest example of the anti-Israel bias at the UN and an attempt to rewrite 2,000 years of history. Israel has refused to allow for the reburial of a notorious Palestinian terrorist in the Palestinian Authority. The Palestinian Authority had requested to transfer the remains of Abu Jihad after the cemetery in Syria where he was buried was destroyed by ISIS. However, today, head of the Coordination for Government Activities in the Territories, IDF Major General Yoav Mordechai, rejected the request. Abu Jihad was responsible for several terror attacks that killed dozens of Israelis. He was assassinated by Israel in 1988. Austria now says it will remodel, not demolish, the home in which Adolf Hitler was born. We reported to you yesterday that Austria's Interior Minister Wolfgang Sobotka said the house in the western town of Braunau was to be torn down to end any sort of attraction that it may hold for Nazi supporters and admirers of Hitler. However, today Sobotka reportedly told journalists that the house would rather be completely redesigned so as to make it unrecognizable. Several members of a government-appointed commission on the matter explained that, quote, a demolition of the home would amount to negating Austria's Nazi past. A delegation of the American Jewish Committee has concluded a 3-day visit to Japan. The group, led by AJC CEO David Harris, met with Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, as well as with National Security Advisor Shotaro Yachi in Tokyo, among other officials, to address such issues as Japan-U.S. ties and Japan-Israel relations. Harris called Japan a close friend of the Jewish state. Birthright has announced a new trip to Israel option for busy young professionals. The 7-day ultimate adventure, as opposed to the standard 10-day Israel trip, enables young Jewish postgrads aged 21 to 26 to enjoy the free Israel trip without needing to take as many days off from work. This past summer, approximately 30,000 young Jews from 59 countries visited Israel with various Birthright programs. And looking now at our programming for tonight on JBS for Tuesday, October the 18th at 7 o'clock, Kenneth Bialkin leads a panel discussion on the Middle East today with Representative Ed Royce, Malcolm Hoenlein, Richard Stone, Stephen Greenberg, and moderator Lally Wymuth from the Jewish Center of the Hamptons. At 8 o'clock, award-winning writer and teacher Tamima Goldberg-Shulman shows the many ways in which the Jewish tradition has been misunderstood with regard to women from the UTJ conference Finding Love in the Jewish Community. At 8:30, Rabbi Shai Held of Machon Hadar discusses Torah and technology. And at 9, Mark Golub sits down with IDF Sergeant in Reserve Benjamin Anthony on L'chaim. At 10:30 tonight, 2 Israeli soldiers on active duty describe the ethical standards and character of the IDF. And coming up right after this newscast tonight at 6:30, In the News with Mark Golub. And that's the JBS News Update for Tuesday, October the 18th, 2016. I'm Teisha Bader.